Alright, what's up, Jan here, and a little different style of videos, and I just want to do something more to like, it's rapid information coming right at you versus just something long format, which does take a lot of time and stuff like that. So I'd rather just do some rapid firing and just share all the things I'm learning and stuff like that, just to maybe give some insights to some people, whoever are watching my channel, and just also to create like a system in place to just be more consistent with overall in the channel. So one thing I wanted to talk about today is just general productivity, something I found really insightful from a friend that I was discussing, and that was on the concept of having these sort of time frameworks for like how you can organize your tasks in your day over time, because we were talking and stuff like that. However, the thing is, I didn't realize how insightful it is to my friend, because he was like, oh wow, this is actually really cool, why don't you just teach me more about it? So I just figured I might as well just make a whole entire video about, not only including this concept, but also just some other things too that I find pretty insightful in my own life. Just helps me 10x my productivity, and also too maybe might be useful for you. So it comes from this, and this is where it originally rooted from. I was doing some research just on productivity and time management and stuff like that. I was actually working on some sort of offers for just like a business I'm trying to work on set up. But anyway, I was researching some time management tactics and stuff like that. And one thing I found really cool that I started incorporating into my own life is just having these sort of what's it called, like time blocks, where you basically name the time blocks that are within your daily schedule, or whatever you want to call it. And what you would do is you'd categorize them by the type of time you are leveraging at that moment. So for instance, I actually got this from Y Combinator, because at some point I was studying just various different tactics that like startups and founders, like I just love entrepreneurship and business and things of all that nature. I don't know why, it's just like obsessive to me. But I was researching Y Combinator and some of the things that they were doing, and I read this article that was actually really popular and shared by a lot of people, and that was, I believe, by Paul Graham. He's one of the original co-founders of Y Combinator, where you might know of like Sam Altman and everyone like that, where all these startups go there, they get their funding and some, I guess you can say, mentoring and all that. But anyway, so what this one article taught was that on the concept of maker time and then manager time. So when you have maker time, you basically allow yourself to dedicate full blocks and long blocks of time to be able to put in creative work. So like for instance, right now, this would be considered maker time. Why? Because I'm dedicating a certain amount of time, right, where it's undistracted, undisturbed, and I'm able to produce. You're basically a producer in maker time. In maker time, the whole idea revolves around you being able to go out there undistracted and being able to have long stretches of time to be able to produce like content, code, whatever you're doing, whether it's even like video editing, video recording, YouTubing, creating content, whatever it really is, it's maker time. That's why it's called that. You're creating long blocks of time, long stretches, undisturbed, and then you're producing. That's the whole goal, because a lot of people, what they do on social media is they just consume stuff, right? When you consume stuff all the time, you're not really producing, and the reason why you're not getting any results is simply because you're a consumer and you're not producing. And the only people that are really successful in basically in the world today are really people who are producing, right? Whether you're producing products, offers, services, it doesn't matter. As long as you're being a producer and you're able to have these stretches of time throughout your day where you're able to go out there and produce, right? Create. You're able to capture attention. You're maybe able to, I don't know, put something else out, work on your personal brand, whatever it may be. So that's the one thing of the one side of the concept on the time blocking from that article. And the other time block is actually called manager time. Now, manager time, it doesn't necessarily need to be like a CEO, like an entrepreneur, like a boss or something like that, just to call it maker time, manager time. Like, these are just like mental frameworks, right? You can rebrand it to whatever works best for you. But what manager time would be, just basically like doing things like email, being able, like, let's say you're running a business, being able to do support. Maybe you have some sort of like quick tasks to take care of. Maybe you are dealing with a team or something like that. So in manager time, what you're really just, what's consuming all of the time is that it's just like kind of managerial tasks, things that are just, you kind of have to like get out of the way, right? And what's the key difference between maker time and manager time is that manager time is more of like, all right, like I set I predetermine a time, and then maybe I'll devote like 30 minutes to this block of time on my schedule where I can just like bust out some tasks, right? If there's like a meeting or if there's something else that you're doing, you want to have like this manager time so you can also get those tasks within that sort of block, that, excuse me, that block for manager time where you can just like knock it out, right? Because if your full entire day is just composed of maker time, well then maybe you'll be backlogged on emails or like some other things where you have to like maybe manage people or whatever it really is, right? So maybe some business aspects or like maybe some just like basic setups for maybe managing a personal brand or whatever it really may be. So those were like the two concepts that were talked about. And then another interesting thing I found out over time was that like I was researching something about Warren Buffett, and I was just wondering, this guy really just gets paid to make a handful of decisions every single year. And it really just comes down to his judgment, right? Because his judgment is basically was producing that level of return where he is at that level, right? He's just purely getting paid for judgment. And that's like the ultimate level you want to be in life, where you get purely paid just based off your judgment, which is the highest possible leverage thing you can possibly do. It's just being able to earn with your mind. And Warren Buffett is a prime example. He basically reads 6 to 8 hours a day, doesn't really make big decisions on a daily basis, maybe has like a one or two or just a couple of trades every single year, or just like, he makes some big moves with his business and they make billions, you know what I mean? It's pretty crazy. But then I thought to myself, well, there's maker time, there's manager time, but then what about like some sort of reflection time? Because what I always do is I always reflect, I kind of like analyze, I see where I'm at and stuff like that. So I also thought of, wait, what if I put into the picture too that there's this thing called insight time? So there's actually 3 types of different time blocks I use, and that is maker time, manager time, and then this new one I just kind of coined, and that is just basically insight time, being able to block out stretches of time or just certain time blocks within your day where you're able to kind of step back, have some breathing room, and then being able to kind of like self-reflect, self-analyze, being able to kind of see the big picture going on. Because when you're constantly like in the works, whether you're producing or you're like doing some sort of managerial tasks or whatever it may be, and you don't step back and you're just constantly like in the arena, in the battle, you can't see the forest, right? And then I kind of thought to myself that that's very true, because whenever like I'm taking walks or I am out there and contemplating on whatever it may be, I'm not able to do that unless I am able to kind of step back. And then this goes back to, like, I just made the connection right now, is not that long ago I was reading The Art of Impossible by Stephen Collar, and also to like Stealing Fire, which is really interesting and just talks about flow state. But what I wanted to say was, he mentioned that like, this is, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, and it kind of goes along the lines of this, and that is, when we're able to step back and we're able to let these ideas, all these problems and stuff like that marinate in our minds, that's like when I forget what it's exactly called, but there's like a certain network within your brain where it switches off, where it's just like the conscious mind switches off, and then like the other aspect of it flips on, and I forget what the name is, so I'm not gonna try to pull something up right now, but this different aspect of your brain pops up or just activates, and then what it does is that it free associates all the ideas, all the things you're working on, and then what happens is that you're able to make unique connections, unique insights and reflections, or just like insights based off just like everything going on. So usually what I do is that when I know that I'm like very frustrated with a task I'm doing and I just can't solve a problem, right? Like I just can't freaking solve a problem, I know that because what I got from that book, The Art of Impossible, is that exactly when you're in those moments, and this is like a freaking major creativity hack, exactly when you're in those moments, just step back, go do something else, go take a walk, go do some dishes, or go talk to, like, pet your dog or whatever. Just go do something else, step away from your desk, step away, go do something else, and that is the prime time where like a massive insight comes. And it's happened so many times in my life where like I just can't deny it. It's a real proven thing, and it's not just like kind of theory and stuff like that. Like it's actually very proven, where if you just step away from your desk or your tasks or whatever you're managing at the moment or just doing, you're able to make these, you just find these solutions, you find these ideas, you find like these weird eureka moments where it's just like, holy crap, like this is the solution, you know, like this is the answer. And it's because like your unconscious mind activates, and it's all capturing stuff in the background, right? Like it's all capturing stuff in the background, but things like it flips on, and then you're just able to make these unique insights. So I'm kind of digressing here, but what I'm really trying to say is that there's this also other important sort of time, and that is insight time, that is missing from the picture. And that is basically just insight time. You're able to reflect, you're able to step back, you're able to find like these creative, innovative solutions and ideas to whatever you are working on right now at the moment. And that would be that for like the different sorts of times that I'm using. The next thing I wanted to go over is that, all right, well, if we have these sort of time blocks, well, what do? Do I have to prioritize, or should I say, should I schedule every single task that I'm doing as an event? Well, here's the thing. If you're out here and you're trying to be productive, right? The thing is, like, if we have like task lists and stuff like that, I mean, people leverage different sort of systems. Like for the longest time, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Andy Frisella. He, big fan, especially when he had MFCEO. But anyway, you know, I was following the 5 critical task list thing that he was doing for like a really long time. And then I was playing around with some other ideas and stuff like that. But the thing is that I was split testing different methods. But the thing is, we can create these task lists, and like I split tested with like having task list buckets, like as in like different variations of task lists. I was also split testing with just having like a single critical list, right? Like, and it's just really just comes down to finding what works for you. But the thing is that these task lists, they can be infinite, meaning you can continue piling in tasks and tasks and tasks and tasks and tasks, right? And it just becomes infinite to a point where it's just like overwhelming because you have like 100 tasks, you don't know which one to prioritize, and then it's just like these tasks don't get done. So the thing is, these task lists, they are infinitely scalable, but your time is not. So what is really the solution here? Well, when you just go back to the idea just I was talking about a moment ago, about having these different sort of time blocks, right? So we have maker, manager, insight time. And of course, you can, if there's a better system that works for you, or you know of something better, or maybe you just want to rebrand it to something else that is more relevant into your own life, you have to have these time blocks in place when you're like creating your schedule. You have this schedule out or whatever it may be, and then you're putting what's it called, tasks into these time blocks where if you know, let's say, all right, well, if now is insight time or something like that, well, now is exactly the time where I can do some reflection. I can maybe do some meditation. I can maybe go on a walk or something like that, right? Or let's say for maker time, well, if you know you have to produce like, let's say 100 minutes of content today, well, that is exactly the long stretch of time where in this sort of maker time block, I can go in there, you know, hop up in the flow state, get really zoned in and produce some really good content, right? So that would be the maker time. And then manager time, well, maybe let's say you are managing team, or you have, you know, just to get rid of like some miscellaneous work or something like that, right? Well, these tasks will go into those time buckets. So they're not just kind of like sitting there constantly in the task list, but they're actually getting done, right? Because a task list is, the whole purpose of it is for you to get things done, right? And if they're just constantly sitting in your task list, well, they're never really getting done. So that's something that's been really useful to me, just in the coming months, just in terms of my productivity. And I mean, I hope other people are finding this insightful. But anyway, just kind of sharing what I know, and just going back to the rapid fire. I mean, I have some notes here that some of the things I wanted to share. And another thing, so the thing is, not everyone has like these long stretches of time or just these long periods where, all right, well, maybe I can do like this 3-hour work block and just produce something, right? Or maybe you just have a really awkward schedule where you just have a bunch of interruptions because of your work or whatever the heck you're doing, right? So another thing that I got really interesting is just how to enter flow state more quickly and get more done, right, in those smaller stretches. And that is, I've been doing like a lot of more research on flow state because it is really interesting. I read, I mean, everyone heard of that book called Flow, right, by that dude named Mihaly, Csikszentmihalyi, right? And the thing is that I didn't really take it that serious a long time ago. But then over time, maybe I would like look back over and maybe get some ideas from it, just kind of like refresh my mind. And I think just recently posted a video on peak experiences about flow state. And one thing that I've been like really leveraging to pretty high degree is that microtasking, right? It's this concept called microtasking. And what you're doing here is not only you have the complexity component, so there's these different things called like flow triggers and stuff like that, like these different triggers that help you enter flow state more quickly, because there's like a flow state cycle, right? And depending on where you are in the cycle, you can like leverage these triggers to help you more easily get into the flow state. And one thing I've been like really leveraging for my life just to get more productivity and more things done in just whatever time I have is just leveraging micro tasks, or just like a quick micro goals. So when you're adding the time element, right, like a scarce amount of time, when you're adding, let's say like maybe even a timer to it, right, to like measure the feedback that, all right, now I also have feedback, that's another trigger. Now what if also too I'm adding that, all right, well, there's a scarce amount of time, there's urgency, there's like a 90-minute clock where this is the only like longest flow period or like work block I have for the day, so I have to get things done. So now you have two components working against you. And then what if we also add like novelty, right? Like you're consuming new information, or maybe some sort of complexity, right? Like you're kind of stretching yourself above what's comfortable, but you're still under what is within your range. So now what you're able to do when you have like, let's say like these quick sprints of like micro goals, where like, let's say, all right, I have this 90-minute block, I have 15 minutes to do email, I have 30 minutes to do some video editing, I have 30 minutes to maybe write something, right? When you're setting these predetermined, like fictitious elements that aren't really there, but like you're kind of manufacturing them, what's happening is that you're setting off these different flow triggers, and it's more easily to get into the flow and then just more quickly get work done, right? Because then you start thinking on a different level. And what I want to share is that when you start thinking with like these different component or these different triggers working with you, what happens is that you start thinking differently. So like, let's say if I have 30 minutes to write something, I am not only is there like urgency and scarcity with like the time, right? But then it's also forcing my mind to think of, all right, what is the most highest leverage things I can possibly think of at this moment in time, right? And that is like, all right, how can I not only bang out this project I'm working on, but what are the most highest leverage things I can work on right now in this moment to help me get to my goal? And let's say you're working on like 100 or 200 words. Well, maybe it's about something you recently read or you consumed, right? So you just start banging it out like that, right? And the thing is, like, when you're producing these fictitious elements that can work with you, right, in terms of just like time and urgency and stuff like that, you're more easily able to find with your mind, right, the most highest leverage activities or things to work on right now in this moment. And another thing I split test too, just to show you the power of that, is that when you manufacture like a certain amount of work hours you have in a day to get things done, right? Like let's say you're working on a business and you only have like 2, 3, 4 hours a day to work. Well, within those 2, 3, 4 hours, best believe you're gonna get a lot of stuff done. And it's because like, you know, in your head you have 4 hours to work, and because for the rest of the day maybe you have school and then maybe you have some other job you're working on. So the thing is, like, with those 4 hours you have, you know, within those 4 hours you have to be hyper productive. And the way you're hyper productive is like, not only when you educate yourself about this stuff, but also too that you realize that you're creating these deadlines, you're creating these sort of urgency, you're leveraging different tools, mental frameworks like flow, you have these different time management systems, you kind of understand productivity. When we're setting micro goals and stuff like that, we're more easily focused, and then we can switch from relevant task to task to task. And the thing is, like, when we're setting these micro tasks, we're not necessarily diverging from this one task to something that's completely different. Like if I'm going to be reading right now and then all of a sudden I want to go work out, well then, excuse me, that's a bad example. Let's say I am writing right now. I'm writing about, like, let's say AI or something like that. All right, ignore the previous example I just said. But let's say I'm writing about AI, right? And then, all right, well, maybe now's not the best time to go out there and produce a video because you're kind of in that flow state with like the writing, right? So maybe do something more relevant. Like if you have like an email list, all right, transition to writing to an email list. Or maybe let's say you have a large following. All right, well, rather than completely going to do something that is irrelevant, you're switching from one micro task to another micro task to now what you're doing is maybe you're repurposing content. You're doing something that's kind of still relevant within that kind of within like that kind of range of different tasks you can possibly do or pick from, and then executing it based on that while still maintaining the flow state. So it's not like completely diverging from one thing, but you're going to something that is relevant and still maintaining that flow. But those are some of the things I wanted to share. I actually have a lot more things I wanted to share, but I didn't realize that this video was gonna take up some time. But I mean, that's really it. I just wanted to do like these rapid fires, like no fancy editing or stuff like that. I wanted to put like a system in place just for my personal brand. So like I have this system where I know like on a certain basis I'm gonna be just recording content, and also to just growing the overall channel and people that are getting value from this. But overall too, just for myself, just so I can be pretty consistent with this. But yeah, I mean, that's really all. I want to just share some productivity, time management tips, and overall just like a mental framework here with flow. I mean, I didn't really realize I was going to be talking about like flow and like creativity and stuff like that here, but I felt like this was pretty insightful, and it just kind of like added some more depth to the conversation that I'm having here. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed watching this. Let me know also too if you like the style. I wasn't really a fan of like the whole faceless thing, because I mean, it is a lot of freaking work and stuff like that, and I don't know if I see myself doing faceless for like the longest time too. And I also really wanted to build like a connection with any subscriber base I build at all, so I feel like that's an important value to me versus just being completely faceless. But I'm digressing here. So other than that, I appreciate the video. Thanks for watching, and if you don't know who I am, I'm Jan, and I just make insightful videos, I guess. So yeah, so peace out. Thanks for coming.